Ravi stood near the edge of the landing ramp, looking out at the golden towers of Velora's capital city. The sunlight on this planet was softer than on Earth, turning everything into shades of amber and silver. As the shuttle doors opened, he adjusted the collar of his uniform. This was supposed to be a simple diplomatic visit, nothing more than greetings and formal words. The rest of the human delegation stepped down first, led by Commander Holt. Ravi followed at the back, holding the small case that carried translation devices. He wasn't an officer or an ambassador, just a technician. He wasn't used to grand ceremonies, and the sight waiting below made his heart beat faster. Rows of armored Veloran guards stood perfectly still on both sides of a red stone pathway. Their armor gleamed in the sun, and their tall crests swayed slightly in the breeze. At the end of the path stood the royal family of Velora. Ravi had read about them: proud, disciplined, and famous for their warrior culture. The king was broad-shouldered and stern, wearing a cloak of deep blue silk. Beside him stood the queen, elegant and calm. But Ravi's eyes went to the princess. She was dressed in a rich teal blue gown, her features sharp but graceful. There was something in her gaze steady, focused, almost curious. She didn't look at the commander or the senior officers. She looked at Ravi. As the humans approached, Commander Holt bowed slightly, speaking through the translator. "We come in peace and friendship, bearing greetings from Earth." The king nodded politely, but his daughter stepped forward before anyone else could speak. Her voice was clear, carrying across the courtyard without need for translation. "Human," she said, pointing directly at Ravi, "are you married or single?" The courtyard fell silent. Ravi blinked, unsure if he'd heard her correctly. Single," he said awkwardly. He hadn't expected to say anything at all today. The Veloran nobles whispered among themselves. Some looked shocked, others amused. Even Commander Holt glanced back at Ravi with raised eyebrows. The princess smiled slightly, as if satisfied with his answer. "Good," she said simply, and returned to her place beside the king. The rest of the welcome continued, but Ravi barely heard it. Why had she asked him that? He wasn't anyone important. He stayed near the back of the group as they were led into the palace, trying to ignore the stares of the Veloran guards. The palace was breathtaking inside. Tall pillars carved with scenes of battles stretched up to a ceiling glittering with crystal lights. Servants moved silently, guiding the visitors to a grand hall where a formal dinner would be held later. Ravi kept to himself, placing translation devices where needed and checking equipment. But no matter where he stood, he felt the princess's eyes on him. When she walked past with her attendants, she gave him the same steady look, not unkind, but filled with purpose. During a pause before dinner, Ravi found himself standing by a large window overlooking the city. The towers glowed as the twin moons began to rise. A young Veloran guard approached him. Unlike the others, he didn't look unfriendly, just curious. "You must be wondering why she spoke to you," the guard said in halting English. Ravi gave a nervous laugh. "You could say that. Does she usually do that?" The guard shook his head. "No. She does nothing without reason. When the princess chooses someone, it is because the old ways guide her." "Old ways?" Ravi asked. The guard glanced around, lowering his voice. "There is an old prophecy, a stranger from the stars, unbound by vow, will guide the royal line through its darkest trial. Some think it is just a story. Perhaps the princess does not." Before Ravi could ask more, a servant arrived to escort him back to the dining hall. The conversation ended as quickly as it began. The dinner was formal and filled with speeches. Commander Holt spoke about peace, trade, and understanding. The king gave a short reply, polite but distant. All the while, Ravi felt out of place among the richly dressed nobles. He was just a technician, sitting at the far end of the table, hoping no one asked him to talk. But midway through the meal, The princess spoke again, this time addressing her father in her own language. The translator whispered the meaning into Ravi's ear, I request that the human named Ravi stay in the palace as my honored guest. The hall erupted in murmurs. Some nobles looked displeased, others simply surprised. Commander Holt frowned slightly, clearly worried about political complications. The king's expression didn't change much, but after a long moment, he nodded. As you wish, he said to his daughter. Ravi froze, unsure what to say. He had no authority to refuse, but he didn't know what this meant. Why was she interested in him? What did honored guest even involve on a planet like this? Later that night, as Ravi was led through winding palace corridors to a room prepared for him, his thoughts raced. He wasn't a soldier or a diplomat. He didn't belong in royal courts. And yet, for some reason, a princess from another world had chosen him out of everyone. As the door closed behind him, Ravi looked out at the twin moons shining over Velora. He had no idea what tomorrow would bring, but he could feel that his life had just changed forever. Ravi woke to soft golden light filtering through a tall window. The room was far too grand for him, polished marble floor, walls carved with star patterns, and a bed so wide it could have fit 3 people. A servant entered silently, placing fresh clothes on a stand, a loose white tunic and dark trousers, clearly made for comfort, not ceremony. His Majesty has summoned you to the council chamber, the servant said with a polite bow. Ravi blinked. Me? Are you sure? Yes, human Ravi, the servant replied calmly, as if it were perfectly normal for a visiting technician to be called by a king before breakfast. The council chamber was high-ceilinged and ringed with tall windows, sunlight spilling onto a round table of dark stone. The king sat at the head, the queen at his side, and nobles filled the remaining seats. Princess Alira stood near her father, her expression as unreadable as ever. Commander Holt was also present, looking uneasy. As Ravi entered, several nobles exchanged doubtful glances. One of them, a stern man with silver bands on his armor, leaned toward another and whispered loud enough for Ravi to hear, "This is the one? He looks no stronger than a child." Alira's eyes flashed, and the hall fell silent when she spoke. "I have chosen him as guest of Velora. He will remain in the palace." The king studied Ravi closely. "Human Ravi," he said slowly, "my daughter tells me you have no vows or binding promises. Is that true?" Ravi hesitated, confused. "Yes. I'm not married, if that's what you mean. I don't have any major commitments." The nobles murmured again. The king raised his hand for silence. "Then hear this, Velora faces danger. Border worlds have been raided by unknown forces. Our enemies grow bold. We must prepare for war." Ravi swallowed hard. "I see. But what does that have to do with me?" A noble with a long scar down his cheek scoffed. "It has nothing to do with him. He is weak. He cannot fight. He does not belong here." Alira turned sharply toward the scarred noble. "Do not judge by appearance," she said coldly. "Humans are quick learners. They adapt faster than you know." Ravi shifted uncomfortably. He wasn't sure whether to feel honored or terrified. After the council meeting, Alira led Ravi into the palace courtyard, where soldiers trained with long spears and heavy shields. The air rang with the sound of metal striking metal. "Why me?" Ravi asked finally, unable to hold the question any longer. "I'm not a fighter. I'm not even important in my own crew. Why are you doing this?" Alira stopped walking and looked him straight in the eye. "Because I need someone I can trust. Someone who is not part of Veloran politics. You are unbound by vows, which makes you neutral. That matters more than strength." Ravi frowned. "Neutral for what?" She didn't answer directly. Instead, she gestured toward the training ground. "If you are to stay here, you must learn. The palace is no safe place now. There are whispers of betrayal. I cannot protect you if you cannot protect yourself. Before Ravi could protest, a tall officer named Darren stepped forward. Princess, you cannot be serious. This human is untrained. He will not survive an hour of Valoran drills. Then you will teach him, Alira said firmly. And you will not go easy on him. Training began immediately. Ravi was handed a practice staff, heavier than it looked, and ordered to copy basic strikes and footwork. His arms ached after only a few minutes. Darren barked instructions without mercy, and Valoran soldiers laughed quietly at his awkward movements. But Ravi didn't give up. He listened carefully, adjusted his stance, and kept trying even when he stumbled. By the end of the first hour, sweat dripped down his face, but he could block a strike without dropping his weapon. Alira watched from the edge of the courtyard, her face calm but her eyes thoughtful. During a short break, Ravi leaned against the wall, catching his breath. Darren approached with a grudging nod. You are slow, but you do not quit. That is, respectable. Ravi smiled weakly. Thanks. I guess that's the best compliment I'll get today. That evening, the humans were invited to a formal dinner with the royal family again. Commander Holt tried to argue privately with Ravi beforehand. You're getting too involved, Holt warned. We're here for diplomacy, not personal games. If you stay in the palace, you'll be caught in politics you don't understand. I didn't ask for this, Ravi replied. But the princess seems serious. I don't think refusing is an option. At dinner, several nobles questioned Alira's decision openly. One even challenged Ravi directly. If humans are so resourceful, prove it. Show us your courage. Join our warriors in the trial ground tomorrow. The trial ground was famous on Velora, a place where warriors demonstrated skill and bravery before the court. It wasn't usually for outsiders. Ravi glanced nervously at Alira, but she simply nodded. He will accept. Ravi's eyes widened. Wait, I will. Yes, Alira said calmly, sipping her drink as though nothing unusual had happened. If you wish to stay here safely, you must earn their respect. Tomorrow, you will. The nobles murmured in approval. The challenge was set. Ravi would have to prove himself in front of the entire palace. Later that night, as Ravi walked back to his quarters under the soft glow of the palace lights, he wondered what exactly he had gotten himself into. He wasn't sure whether the princess was trying to protect him, or testing him for reasons she hadn't explained yet. Either way, tomorrow would be the first real test of his courage. The next morning, the palace courtyard buzzed with excitement. Word had spread quickly today, the human would face the Valoran trial ground. It was not meant to be a fight to the death, but it was no gentle game either. Warriors tested skill, courage, and willpower in front of the court. Few outsiders had ever stepped inside. Ravi stood near the edge of the circular arena, wearing light training armor that felt too big and too heavy. Darren, the tall officer who had been drilling him, fastened the last strap on his chest plate. Remember what I told you, Darren said. Keep your footing. Do not try to fight with strength, use speed, use your eyes. I'm not fast either, Ravi muttered under his breath. Darren almost smiled. Then learn to be fast. Today. Princess Alira appeared on a raised platform beside her parents. The nobles filled the seats around the arena, whispering among themselves. Some clearly expected Ravi to fail. Others watched with curiosity, wondering what the princess saw in this human. Commander Holt stood off to the side, arms crossed, his face tense. Ravi caught his eye. Holt gave a small shake of the head, silently warning him to be careful. A loud drum beat signaled the start of the trial. The gate at the far end opened, and two Valoran warriors stepped out, both armed with wooden training spears. They wore no real armor, only chest guards, but their movements were sharp and precise. Two of them. Ravi whispered. Yes, Darren replied calmly. Do not panic. They will not kill you. But they will test you. That's very comforting, Ravi said dryly. The warriors bowed briefly to the princess, then to Ravi. He copied their gesture awkwardly. When the drum sounded again, the first warrior lunged. Ravi barely raised his practice staff in time, blocking the strike, the impact jarring his arms. He stumbled back, but managed to stay on his feet. The second warrior circled behind him, and Ravi spun clumsily, swinging too wide. The crowd murmured, unimpressed. Alira's eyes never left Ravi. Minutes passed like hours. Ravi took hit after hit, the strikes landing hard against his armor. He gritted his teeth and refused to fall. Darren's voice called from the edge of the arena, watch their feet. Look for the opening, not the weapon. Ravi forced himself to focus. The first warrior always stepped with his left foot just before striking. The second always dropped his guard after a heavy swing. Little by little, Ravi adjusted. He dodged instead of blocking, letting one spear glance off his shoulder rather than taking it full force. He jabbed quickly when the second warrior overreached, landing his first solid counter-strike. The crowd reacted with surprised cheers. After 10 long minutes, the drum beat ended the round. Ravi stood panting, bruised, and aching, but still upright. Both warriors bowed to him this time with genuine respect. One noble leaned toward another and muttered, he learns faster than I thought. Darren stepped into the arena to clap Ravi on the shoulder. Not perfect, he said, but you did not fall. That is enough for now. Alira rose to speak, her voice carrying clearly. You see? Humans are not weak. They are quick, clever, and determined. He will remain here under my protection, and I expect no more insults to our guest. The nobles bowed slightly, some grudgingly. Later, Ravi sat in the shade of the courtyard, drinking cool water while servants cleaned the arena. His arms shook with exhaustion. That was terrible, he said aloud. It was impressive, Alira's voice answered from behind him. She stepped closer, her teal-blue dress catching the afternoon light. You learned in minutes what takes many warriors days. That is why I chose you. Ravi wiped sweat from his face. You keep saying you chose me, but you still haven't told me why. What do you really want from me? Alira's expression softened slightly, though she kept her usual calm. Velora is in danger. There are enemies outside our world, and perhaps inside this palace as well. I need someone I can trust, someone who is not tied to any noble house or family. You are that person. Ravi frowned. I'm just a technician. I fix machines. I'm not some hero. Perhaps not yet, Alira said quietly. But you have something many warriors lack: patience, creativity, and no pride to blind you. I can work with that. That evening, while Ravi tried to rest, he overheard two palace servants whispering outside his door. Did you hear? Another supply ship vanished near the border. Yes. The raiders grow bolder. Some say it is no random attack. Do you think the council will admit there's a traitor? The voices faded as they moved down the hall, but Ravi's thoughts wouldn't settle. Alira's warning about betrayal seemed more real now. When he met her in the garden later, he told her what he'd heard. Alira's eyes narrowed. I feared as much. Someone is helping our enemies. And if I am right, they are close, too close. Then why keep me here? Ravi asked. Doesn't that make me a target? Yes, Alira said simply. But it also keeps you where I can watch over you. She paused, looking up at the twin moons rising over the palace walls. Tomorrow, I will show you why Velora needs allies like Earth. And why I must find the traitor before it is too late. Ravi felt a chill. He had come expecting nothing more than a diplomatic visit. Now, he was caught in royal secrets and political danger on a world that wasn't his own. The palace looked peaceful in the soft morning light, but Ravi could feel something was wrong. He walked through long corridors decorated with silver lamps and banners, yet every servant and guard he passed seemed tense. It was as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Princess Alira met him near the eastern balcony, where the view stretched over Velora's glittering city. She wore a plain cloak instead of her usual fine dress. "Walk with me," she said quietly. Ravi followed her down a narrow stairwell that led into the older part of the palace, far from the busy halls. "What's going on?" he asked. "Everyone looks worried." "There has been another raid," Alira said softly. "A supply convoy to our border outposts disappeared during the night. The attackers knew exactly where and when to strike. That means someone here is helping them." Ravi frowned. "A traitor? In your own court?" "Yes," she said. "And I think they are watching me." They stopped at a heavy wooden door. Alira unlocked it herself, leading Ravi into a dim storage room filled with crates of old equipment. She pushed one aside, revealing a hidden panel in the wall. Inside were small devices, human-made communication beacons. Ravi's eyes widened. "These are Earth tech. How did these get here?" "That is the question," Alira said grimly. "If an enemy noble has access to such devices, they could send messages off-world without being traced." Before Ravi could speak, footsteps echoed in the corridor. Alira quickly closed the panel and covered it with the crate again. She motioned for silence as a pair of voices passed by. "The princess suspects too much," one voice muttered. "Let her suspect," the other replied coldly. "She won't find proof." The steps faded. Ravi let out the breath he'd been holding. "So, they know you're onto them." Alira nodded. "And that makes you important. You're the only one they won't expect to investigate. They think you're just a visitor." "Great," Ravi said, half joking, half nervous. "So I get to be the bait." Later that day, the palace hosted a meeting of the War Council. The nobles gathered in their silver-trimmed cloaks, discussing how to protect border colonies. Ravi sat quietly at the edge of the room, pretending to check his translation device. He noticed one noble in particular, a tall man named Lord Sarek, seemed too calm, almost bored, as if he already knew what would happen next. When the meeting ended, Ravi followed Sarek at a distance through the marble halls. The noble walked quickly, glancing over his shoulder once before disappearing into a side passage. Ravi hesitated, then slipped after him. The passage led to an unused wing of the palace, dusty and silent. At the end of the hall, Ravi saw Sarek speaking into a small silver transmitter, one of the hidden Earth devices. Ravi ducked behind a pillar, straining to hear. "Yes, the next shipment leaves tomorrow. I will send the route." Sarek paused, then added, "No, the princess suspects nothing." Ravi's heart pounded. He waited until Sarek left, then crept forward. But the transmitter was gone. The noble had taken it with him. That evening, Ravi told Alira what he had seen. She listened carefully, her expression serious. "I suspected Sarek," she admitted. "But we need proof. The king will not move against a noble without evidence." "Then we catch him in the act," Ravi said. Alira gave a faint smile. "Spoken like a true human. You think quickly." She explained her plan. A decoy shipment would leave at dawn, carrying nothing valuable but made to look important. If Sarek was truly feeding information to the raiders, the convoy would be attacked. "And you want me to, what?" Ravi asked. "Travel with the convoy," Alira said. "Watch who comes for it. And if you can, record their signals. My own soldiers are loyal, but if Sarek has allies, I need someone outside the chain of command." Ravi stared at her. "So you're sending me straight into danger again?" I am sending you where no one will look, Alira corrected. Trust me, Ravi. You're safer than you think. I will be watching from above. That night, Ravi couldn't sleep. He paced his quarters, staring out at the twin moons shining over Velora's rooftops. He thought about his quiet life on Earth repairing machines, keeping his head down, and how far away it felt now. Just before dawn, he joined a small convoy of ground transports leaving the city gates. They rumbled over the sand road under the pale morning sky, guarded by Veloran soldiers. Ravi sat in the back of the lead vehicle, pretending to adjust a scanner while secretly recording every signal on his device. Hours passed with no sign of trouble. Then, without warning, dark shapes appeared in the sky, raider craft descending fast. Alira's voice came sharply through Ravi's earpiece. Stay low. I am above you in a patrol ship. We will drive them off. The raiders attacked in quick, precise strikes, proving they had the convoy's exact route. Veloran soldiers fired back, holding the line until Alira's ship roared in, scattering the attackers with bright energy bursts. The convoy was saved, but Ravi had captured everything: signal traces, attack timing, even a faint coded transmission sent just before the ambush. When they returned to the palace, Alira examined the recordings with him. The transmission matched Sarek's private signal frequency. This is the proof we need, Alira said firmly. Tomorrow, we confront him in the council. But he will not give up easily. He may have allies. Ravi felt a chill. He was no longer just a visitor, he was part of something much larger and far more dangerous. The next morning, the council chamber was full. Nobles in shining cloaks lined the round table, voices low with tension. The raids were no longer distant rumors, they were now clear signs of war. Princess Alira stood beside her father, calm but sharp-eyed. Ravi waited near the door, holding a small data tablet with the proof they had gathered. When the king raised his hand, silence filled the hall. We meet to decide how Velora will respond to these attacks, he said firmly. But first, my daughter claims to have evidence of betrayal inside these walls. Alira stepped forward, her voice steady. Our convoys are not found by chance. Someone is sending their routes to the raiders. With human Ravi's help, we traced the signal. It belongs to Lord Sarek. A ripple of shock passed through the room. All eyes turned to the tall noble seated across from the king. Sarek rose slowly, his expression cool. This is an insult, he said. You accuse me with no proof but the word of an off-worlder. Ravi felt the weight of 100 stares, but he forced himself to speak. It's not just my word. I recorded the signal during the attack. It matches your private frequency exactly. Sarek laughed coldly. A convenient story. Anyone could fake such a recording. This human knows nothing of our technology. Before Ravi could answer, Alira held up the tablet and connected it to the council's projector. The signal traces appeared in the air, glowing lines showing the timing of the transmission and the arrival of the raiders. This cannot be faked, she said sharply. The signal came from inside the palace, and it came from your quarters. The room erupted in angry voices. Some nobles shouted for Sarek's arrest, others demanded more investigation. The king raised his hand again, and silence fell. His face was grave. Lord Sarek, you will be confined until this matter is resolved. But Sarek's calm mask cracked for the first time. You are fools, he spat. Do you think you can stop what is coming? Before guards could reach him, Sarek pressed a hidden device on his wrist. The lights flickered, and a sharp alarm echoed through the palace. Alira's eyes widened. He's calling them. Outside, the sky darkened as enemy ships appeared, descending fast over Velora's capital. The invasion had begun. The council scattered as alarms blared through the halls. Soldiers rushed to defensive posts, and Commander Holt shouted orders to the human crew. Ravi ran with Alira through the corridors as the palace shook from distant impacts. "They're hitting the city first," Alira said quickly. "Trying to distract us while they land troops near the palace." "Great," Ravi muttered. "First I get blamed for helping you, now I get caught in a war." Alira glanced at him with the faintest smile. "Welcome to Velora." They reached the command balcony overlooking the palace grounds. From here, Ravi saw smoke rising from the city. Fast enemy craft swooped low, firing on the outer walls. Veloran fighters scrambled to intercept, but the attackers were fast and well organized. The king's voice thundered from the balcony above. "Defend the palace. No invader shall breach these gates." Alira turned to Ravi. "I need your help. Our defense system is strong, but it was built for direct assaults, not fast raids. You've seen how humans fight. What would you do?" Ravi blinked at her. "Me? I'm not a strategist." "Think," Alira urged. "How do humans win battles against stronger enemies?" Ravi hesitated, then remembered something Darren said during training: "Don't fight with strength. Fight with what you have." "Velora's defense is too rigid," Ravi said quickly. "You're trying to guard every gate equally. But these raiders are focusing on weak points. We need to move troops fast instead of holding positions. Use small mobile teams. Hit them where they least expect it." Alira nodded, her eyes bright. "Good. I'll tell my father." Minutes later, under Alira's orders, squads of Veloran soldiers redeployed into fast-moving strike teams. Instead of waiting behind walls, they ambushed raiders in narrow streets and alleys. The rigid defense became flexible, and the attackers began to falter. From the balcony, Ravi watched as Alira coordinated the battle like a seasoned commander, using both palace guards and city defenders. Even Commander Holt looked impressed. But then a message came from the palace gate. "Enemy ground forces approaching led by traitors." Alira's face hardened. Sarek opened the gates for them. "We have to stop him," Ravi said. The two of them, with Darren and a small guard squad, hurried toward the palace gate. They found Sarek trying to escape with a group of armed raiders. Blaster fire scorched the marble walls as the traitors pushed forward. "Sarek!" Alira called out. "Surrender now and you may live." Sarek sneered. "Velora will fall. Your throne means nothing." He raised his weapon, but Ravi grabbed a dropped spear and swung it hard, knocking the weapon aside. Darren's soldiers charged, disarming the traitors in a brief but fierce clash. Sarek was captured, but his words still rang in Ravi's ears. As the fighting outside the palace died down, Alira stood beside Ravi on the smoke-filled balcony. The raiders were retreating for now, but this was only the first wave. "They will come again," Alira said quietly. "And next time, they will strike harder." Ravi looked out at the burning city. "Then we need to be ready." Alira turned to him. "Yes. And you will help me lead them." Ravi stared at her. "Me? Lead? I'm not your human," Alira interrupted gently. "You see things differently. That may be what saves us." The city of Velora lay in ruins, smoke rising from shattered buildings. Ravi stood on the palace balcony, watching the retreating raiders disappear into the sky. Princess Alira approached, her cloak flapping lightly in the wind. "They will regroup," she said. "And they have a command ship controlling their forces. If we destroy it, the rest will fall into chaos." Ravi's stomach tightened. "You want me to go with you?" Alira's eyes were steady. "Yes. You saw how quickly you learn. I need someone who can think differently, someone they will not expect." Commander Holt handed Ravi a compact, lightweight suit. "You'll be fine," he said. "Stay close to the princess." Ravi nodded, trying to steady his nerves. He was no soldier, but today he would need every skill he had learned in Velora's palace. The strike ship lifted off silently, slipping past the remaining enemy patrols. Ravi clutched a handrail as Alira briefed the team. We will board the enemy command ship. Disable their communication systems, then escape. Avoid direct combat if possible. Ravi swallowed. Avoid combat, he repeated. That might be harder than it sounds. Alira gave him a faint smile. We humans have a way of using what we have. You'll see. The enemy ship loomed ahead, dark and angular against the blackness of space. Ravi felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. Boarding it meant stepping into the enemy's heart. They docked quietly. The airlock hissed, and the team slipped inside. Corridors of cold metal stretched in every direction, dimly lit by harsh white lights. Ravi gripped his staff-like tool tightly, unsure what to expect. Alira whispered, "We split into pairs. Follow my lead and stay alert." Ravi paired with Darren, moving silently down a narrow hall. Ahead, guards patrolled in a predictable pattern. Ravi watched their footsteps, remembering what he had learned during training: timing, observation, patience. "Now," Darren whispered. Ravi dropped into the shadow of a doorway. The guards passed without noticing. They reached a control room filled with blinking consoles and humming machinery. Ravi's eyes widened at the unfamiliar technology, but Alira guided him quickly. "See that panel," she said, pointing. "Cut the wires in this order, then the system will shut down for 5 minutes. Enough for us to escape." Ravi hesitated, then followed her instructions. Sparks flew as he carefully disconnected each wire. The hum of the ship's systems dimmed. Outside, he could hear alarms starting, backup power activating. "Good work," Alira whispered. "Now let's move before they recover." As they left the control room, a door hissed open behind them. 2 enemy guards appeared, weapons raised. Ravi froze, heart pounding. "Darren, go left," Alira shouted. Ravi followed instinctively. He swung his staff-like tool, knocking the weapon from the nearest guard's hands. Darren tackled the other one, and together they subdued the intruders without injury. Ravi realized he had acted faster than he thought possible. Alira's eyes met his. "See? You adapt. That is why I chose you." Ravi smiled faintly, feeling a surge of confidence. The team continued through twisting corridors, moving toward the docking bay for their escape. Along the way, they found evidence of the enemy's plan: maps of Velora's borders, supply schedules, and communication logs. Ravi's eyes widened. If this had fallen into the wrong hands, entire border worlds could have been captured. "This is bigger than I thought," Ravi said quietly. Alira nodded. "And now we have the chance to stop it before it spreads further." Finally, they reached the docking bay. The ship's engines hummed, ready for takeoff. Alira checked the team, everyone was accounted for. "Hold tight," she said. "We leave in 5. Ravi fastened his harness and glanced at the command ship one last time. Inside, he saw the enemy leader shouting orders, unaware their system had been disabled and their plan exposed. As the strike ship lifted off, Alira guided it smoothly into space, dodging patrols. Ravi's hands shook slightly, but he held steady. They slipped past enemy lines and returned to Velora's orbit, the city lights below flickering like stars through the smoke. When the ship landed, the team was greeted by cheering soldiers and relieved nobles. Ravi felt a strange mix of exhaustion and pride. He had not been trained to fight, yet he had helped protect an entire world. Alira approached him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You did well," she said. "You are more than I expected. And this is only the beginning." Ravi nodded, finally understanding the weight of her words. Humans were seen as weak, small, and unimportant by many in the galaxy. Yet here he was, a human, making a difference on another world. That night, as Ravi looked out over the palace from his quarters, he realized something had changed inside him. He was no longer just a visitor. He was a protector, a partner in a struggle that reached far beyond Velora. And for the first time, he understood why Princess Alira had singled him out. The palace of Velora was quiet for the first time in days. Smoke still curled from the distant city streets, but the enemy ships had retreated, their command destroyed. Ravi stood on the balcony with Princess Alira, watching the twin moons rise over the golden towers. "You've done more than anyone expected," Alira said quietly. "Velora owes you a great debt." Ravi shook his head. "I just did what I could. You and your soldiers did all the real work." Alira's eyes held a mixture of amusement and seriousness. "You underestimate what humans can do. Quick thinking, adaptability, you were the key to turning the tide." Ravi looked at her, remembering how, weeks ago, he had stepped off the shuttle as a nervous technician. Now, he had led strike teams, thwarted traitors, and helped save a world. It was almost too much to believe. The next morning, the council convened again. Lord Sarek and the other conspirators were brought forward under guard. Some nobles still looked doubtful, whispering among themselves, but the proof Ravi had gathered left no room for debate. "Sarek," the king said, voice stern, "you betrayed Velora and endangered countless lives. How do you answer this?" Sarek's face was pale, and he said nothing. Alira stepped forward. "We have recordings of every transmission, every signal. We know who helped the raiders. Justice will be served." Ravi stood nearby, his heart pounding. He had not expected to face the traitors directly, but the council needed him to testify. His voice was steady as he explained what he had recorded and how he had observed the traitors during the convoy attack. The nobles were silent for a long moment. Then one by one, they nodded in agreement. Sarek was stripped of his titles and confined to a secure location until judgment could be made. With the traitors dealt with, the focus turned to rebuilding Velora. Ravi helped organize supplies, coordinate defensive improvements, and teach soldiers some human strategies for flexible combat. It was exhausting work, but he felt a sense of purpose he had never known on Earth. Alira often walked beside him, quietly observing, sometimes offering guidance, other times letting him make decisions on his own. A quiet bond had formed between them, built on trust, shared danger, and mutual respect. One evening, after a long day of planning, Ravi and Alira walked in the palace garden. The twin moons reflected in the water of the fountain, and the air was filled with the scent of teal blue blossoms. "You know," Alira said, breaking the silence, "I asked you about your marital status when you first arrived for a reason." Ravi raised an eyebrow. "You still haven't told me why." Alira smiled faintly. "Veloran tradition says the one who saves the crown, or is chosen to protect it, must remain unbound, free of other vows. It is symbolic, a way to show complete loyalty to the royal line." Ravi looked down at his hands, thinking about the past weeks. "So, it wasn't just curiosity." "No," Alira said softly. "It was the first step. I needed to know you were free to act, to think, and to stand beside Velora without divided loyalties." Ravi laughed lightly. "Well, I guess that makes sense. And I can't say I'm sorry about it. It's been an adventure, to say the least." Alira's eyes sparkled. "An adventure that saved a world." Days passed, and Velora slowly returned to normal. The city rebuilt, the soldiers trained, and the nobles adjusted to new leadership. Ravi found a place among them, not as an outsider, but as someone trusted, valued, and respected. One afternoon, Alira invited him to the palace balcony again. "Ravi," she said, "you've earned a place here. You are welcome to stay, not as a visitor, but as my closest ally. Velora needs humans like you." Ravi felt a warmth in his chest he had never felt before. He had left Earth expecting nothing and found a purpose, friendship, and honor on a distant world. "I I don't know what to say, he admitted. You don't need to say anything, Alira replied. Just stay. Help us protect Velora. And trust that you belong here. Ravi nodded. The weight of uncertainty lifted. For the first time in his life, he felt truly recognized, not for his strength, not for his title, but for his courage, his quick thinking, and his heart. As the twin moons rose higher, Ravi and Alira stood together on the balcony, looking out at the city that had once seemed so alien. Now it felt like home. Ravi smiled. I guess I'm single, he said quietly, half teasing. Alira laughed softly, a sound that carried warmth and hope. Yes. And free. That is exactly what Velora needs. Ravi looked out at the stars, thinking about Earth far away, and Velora shining below. Humanity had proven its value not through brute strength, but through courage, intelligence, and trust. And he had proven it too. The story ended not with the close of a battle, but with the promise of new beginnings, alliances forged, a world saved, and a human who had become a hero among the stars.